Welcome to the IpX True North podcast, where we connect people, processes, and tools. I'm your host, Chris Anderson. Today, we're going to be talking about the case for organizational change management. What's at stake when people aren't put first? We have two expert guests on the show today, Brandy Taylor, who is the Director of Program Management, and Michael Benning, who is the Executive Director of True North Enterprise Calibration. Welcome to the show today, guys.
Thanks. Hi, Chris.
Great to be with you.
Absolutely. So we're excited to dig into organizational change management, but first would love for you each to kind of give a high level of what has gotten you into OCM nowadays. So Brandy, we'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll talk a little bit about what OCM really is, and I think that'll help set the precedence for the conversation today. So, all organizations, they must go through changes over time. That could range from individual process changes up to maybe a larger scale transformation per se. So, or even a new CO. So when a major transition like that occurs, whether it's with your tools, your processes, or your people, the business must ensure that the day-to-day operations run smoothly and employees will adapt to those changes. So even well-planned and executed projects can fail when you haven't fully considered the people or the softer side of the project. So that's where, Mike and I come in, is when we're supporting, change management projects within processes, et cetera. You really got to make sure that you are not just focusing on the tool per se, but also the people side of the project to make sure there's success.
Great. Hey, Chris and Brandy, it's great to be with you guys. A little bit about me. My name is Michael Benning, and much of my background is in the oil and gas sector. And I think for me, one of the big things when I think about OCM and its place in creating change, particularly large scale ones, transformational types of changes, it's really, the best idea, the best solution is no guarantee of success. I think about, current example might be that many of us can relate to is we now have, multiple coronavirus vaccines with really 90+% efficacy. And this is a tremendous and an amazing achievement. But we're maybe learning that there's some reluctance out there to take the vaccine. And so this is an enormous problem and a challenge, and maybe enough of a challenge to differentiate success from failure, or at least the extent to which these vaccines can be successful. And so for me, that's a great example of where organizational change management, or OCM, where OCM fits, and why it's so critical to success to consider.
Why is OCM so important? Kind of dig deeper into that kind of question.
Sure. Organizational change management to me is really key to maintaining a positive and a happy work culture per se. So when a change is pushed out on employees, I'm sure everyone's dealt with that in their work lives. Without establishing a trusting and supporting environment, the organization's culture could suffer for that. So it's just human nature to resist doing something differently. Everyone agrees, change is hard. We've all heard that. People are busy. We all want to take the path of least resistance in our work environment. We really cling to the most efficient and effective way that we know how to work. So I think we have become confident in mastering the tried and true methods of accomplishing work as we do it today. So in order to adopt a change to our ways of working, I think we as humans really need to understand, the who, the what, the when, the how, and what is the compelling case for changing. So I think we need to see alignment at the upper levels. And what might be especially important is understanding maybe the repercussions of not changing. Because if we don't understand all of those aspects, I think we all know some people can and will identify loopholes and workarounds potentially to those changes.
When that happens, what could fail or what could be negatively impacted when people don't have organizational change management implemented well?
I think for me, one of the things I would highlight, Chris, is, unfortunately, people can have long memories. And I think, there can be when change initiatives struggle, when they fail, you know, there may be the potential for goodwill to be lost, and it makes the next opportunity a bit more difficult to chase. People can be somewhat skeptical.
I think, experienced employees lose trust, leaders lose employee loyalty. People feel that they don't have an important voice, and they may even feel irrelevant at times. And so I think fostering a culture of really valuing people really goes far in enabling larger scale changes for at any time of any size within an organization.
But Chris, I want to before you move on, I think I want to flip that question and look at it from the other lens. What does OCM done well look like? And I think for me, the shortest way and simplest way to think about it, I think it takes people from participants who might be somewhat reluctant and turns those individuals into highly engaged leaders and supporters of change initiatives. That's what OCM done well does.
I'm sure there's a lot of ins and outs when it comes to managing OCM for a large project or transformation within a company. So how do you suggest companies manage the OCM within these projects?
I'm going to go back to something Brandy said that to me is where it begins and really sets the stage. And she talked a little bit about the why, and I think really making that clear for an organization, why this is worth investing in and what's at stake, be it an opportunity, value, or preventing something, some sort of bad outcome. But I think, why is this change a priority, and what's at stake, and what does it mean? So I think it really begins with the why, and then really making clear how people are impacted from behaviors, how leaders show up, but also roles and responsibilities organizationally. How does this change? How does it fit with the design intent of the organization, and how are teams and individuals meant to interact differently compared to how we used to operate?
I would suggest, for a company, of how are they supposed to manage OCM? In order to manage it well, I think you need to treat it like a standalone parallel project as well. You must plan and budget and allocate the proper resources. Thinking about it from like a program management standpoint, the program manager needs to be focused on the technical aspects of a project or the transformation or the change. So allocating a separate, maybe dedicated lead over OCM on something that's a large scale project could really be key to the success of the OCM piece.
So those are good points. And Michael, I liked how you stated, starting with the why, kind of getting into that deep-rooted reason for it. And I don't know if either of you have read Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, or if you know who he is, but he's in the leadership field, and just figuring out that deep-rooted reason. And he talks about Apple and how they don't talk about what great computers they have, but they talk about what change their products can bring to the lives of people using it. So I think that was a really good point you made with that, with OCM. And so when we take these steps, we start with why, realize how it impacts people, their roles and responsibilities, and then seeing it, Brandy, like you said, as a standalone project. With that, how do companies know if they've done a good job with OCM?
I often hear people say that an organizational change is successful if everyone's bought in. I hear that term "bought in" a lot. So I personally think it needs to be more than that. Don't stop there. Bought in, to me, means that people understand and believe and support the change, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but what I would aspire to is maybe to aim for true adoption. And to me, that means that your employees and your leaders are active and they're willing contributors to the success of the change. They feel heard, they feel empowered, they feel supported. They know where to communicate, where to be heard and valued. They're really interested in being a part of the project and understand those long-term benefits to the company when asked. And to me, that means that understanding is at all levels of the organization. So what does it mean for me specifically as an employee? Success, I think, in a nutshell, just means that you see true engagement, not simply that one-way communication.
I think if you've got the level of engagement and ownership that Brandy's describing, it's pretty difficult to stop a success in that case.
So how can listeners utilize the principles of OCM in their daily lives?
To me, I think OCM is really important for everybody in their daily lives. And I'm not sure people are mindful of this. So everyone manages projects, within their daily lives. Every task is a mini project per se. And, we really are all leaders to those around us every day. So the best way to take OCM principles into our daily lives is just to simply consider people in everything that we do. And I think that's, good emotional intelligence, starting with clear and concise communication, documented and verbal, and ensuring that the information is really accurate before communicating. So stick with the facts. I think you often hear a lot of the water cooler discussions around the office where people are having discussions, but they don't really know what's going on. So it's a lot of gossip. So stick with the facts. I think you should tell leaders and peers what you need to be successful, and let's just do our best at maintaining a can-do attitude.
Brandy said it very well. I think, I would just emphasize something she said. I think, the communication piece, and I think, many of us are guilty of not communicating enough. Just checking in regularly. I think it's difficult to over communicate, and I know it's something that a lot of folks struggle with, myself included. They get busy with other things.
We could all benefit from doing that more with what we have going on in our lives. And I think, one, it can increase what we're doing, the results we get, and the impact we can make. So with that, because it kind of has a lot to do with leadership. So what would you say to leadership who they're maybe not wanting to fund or allocate resources or time to OCM?
Unfortunately, Chris, this is something that we encounter quite a bit, and I guess specifically, I would encourage leaders to do a bit of homework on this. There's an awful lot of material out there that speaks to this in terms of hard numbers, in terms of projects that don't address this adequately, and how that translates into poor results. So, don't take my word for it. Do a bit of homework there. But fortunately or unfortunately, there's a lot of leaders out there who have learned this lesson.
Yeah, I agree with Mike completely. Everything always comes down to an ROI. It just does. I think that's, how companies, are profitable. So, but I would like to also think again, like great leaders need to have good emotional intelligence. So there must be a balance between the people, processes, and the tools. So I would probably ask them, what is the ROI if your expensive transformation does not go smoothly or as planned or is delayed? So it really comes down to solid program management principles. There is a person side of that in general. So doing it right the first time is always more efficient, effective, and predictable over managing a project that ends up, full of corrective action or recycling some of that work or intervention resources because you haven't communicated well on the front side. So I guess I would recommend that people need to socialize and network with others, maybe at other companies who have been through similar transformations or similar projects, and just learn from their experience and see how much effort that they put into the OCM side of things and how it worked out for them.
And so with IpX, they help organizations accomplish this, right? They help accomplish OCM. Is that right?
IpX can view your organization objectively. So we can see it with fresh eyes. We can see what needs to be done to help support, successful transformation within your organization. Sometimes people get very tied and emotional. And so having a third perspective can be very helpful. We can allow your technical people to focus on what they do best and allow IpX to lay out a communication and rollout plan that really includes some proper socialization, the right information, the documentation, training, even requirements gathering, in all the functional domains that can really ensure a comprehensive involvement at all the levels. So, I know Mike and I have been a part of some of this, and we've helped a number of organizations be successful. So IpX can connect you with others who are going through a similar journey. So everyone can network and learn off each other's lessons learned.
Brandy mentioned, the third party perspective, and I think I want to build on that just a bit. I think, one of the areas that we see clients struggle often when they come to managing change is managing well the cultural piece. And sometimes there's an issue of forest for the trees. Sometimes a client doesn't fully appreciate both the strengths and the weaknesses of their organizational culture. And having a fresh perspective, who can compare and contrast with other organizations and identify quickly those strengths and weaknesses, obviously to leverage those strengths, but really to think about what are the cultural implications of this change in terms of leadership, in terms of organizational behaviors across multiple levels. Are organizations more results oriented, or are they more process oriented? For example, are they consensus driven or more hierarchical? These are have often important implications to implementing a change robustly.
With that, so what advice could you give the listeners who might be considering OCM for a 2021 project or a large scale transformation in their workplace?
I would start with thinking about the right person. I think you need that person who has trust at all levels of the organization. They need to understand the user pain points from the bottoms up and been there and lived it. So they also, you need to be a good communicator. You need to be able to communicate at the lower levels of the organization as well as executive level. You need to be able to handle a little bit of conflict. You need to also understand, from a training perspective, I think a lot of companies just stick anyone and say, hey, go ahead and train these people. So how about we take a quick step back and just really think about, how do the people need to learn? What's the best way for different cultures, different people of all different levels of how they need to receive the information and learn and absorb, and just that person that can really bring credibility to the organization. So if you find that right person, I think they can really be worth their weight in gold in making OCM successful.
Wow, this is going to sound like Brandy and I really are really well rehearsed. So she talked a little bit about the leadership aspect. I think for me, I want to go, who is part of the team supporting that leader, and I think that can be critically important as well. I think it's, and I'll highlight a couple areas. One is, just the influence, right? You're trying to get folks and teams to behave differently, to execute a different process, to engage slightly differently, and I think who is part of the team, both designing and implementing the change, can be critically important. I think change agents, I think there are individuals across organizations who just by their nature tend to be more comfortable with change. They're more comfortable driving it. They're more comfortable leading from the front in that space, and more willing to take a risk on something different. But also, I don't think they're alone. I think you want to have additional members part of the design and implementation teams who, have a slightly different perspective. Perhaps they've been burned before with other change initiatives, and can bring, a circumspect sort of perspective there. And I think be able to speak candidly and openly with the organization about what are the risks, what are the challenges, how can we not repeat some of the struggles of the past. Folks in that space can often be highly influential.
So I think having that person in there, having that third party, really is going to make a big difference for these projects, for these transformational aspects in the workplace in 2021. And so where can listeners reach out to both of you guys?
Okay, well, obviously everyone can visit our website at ipxhq.com. Michael and myself are both on LinkedIn, and that's underneath the Institute for Process Excellence. And our emails are also pretty simple. So we have Michael at ipxhq.com and Brandy with a Y at ipxhq.com. So gosh, I would love for someone to reach out to us and ask us some more questions. That'd be kind of fun.
Awesome. Well, yeah, guys, definitely reach out, especially if you have questions about OCM or have projects coming up this year. So the final question, we kind of want to have a little fun with it. So I'd love to hear your guys' answer to this. Who is the best Batman?
Now, if you said Joker, that would be easy. Jack
Like Jack
Nicholson.
Nicholson. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough to beat, right?
Would it
Yeah.
be acceptable to say the Lego Batman?
I think we could accept that technically. Yeah.
Can I go with the worst? Can I say Adam West is the worst?
Adam West is the worst. You think so?
Yeah.
Christian Bale.
Christian Bale.
Yeah, I'd pick Christian Bale. I just love Christian Bale. I think he did a good job with that role.
Yeah, I have to pick Christian Bale.
Really?
So awesome. So we got Lego Batman. We got Adam West is the worst from Michael. Awesome, guys. Well, we appreciate you sharing just about OCM today and about who your favorite and least favorite Batmans are. And again, if you guys need to connect about OCM or anything else IPX does, IPXHQ.com, and then just get connected with Michael and Brandy. Again, thank you guys for being on the IPX True North podcast.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.